Hi folks. Right, we're starting something a bit new today. We're looking at sequences. This is actually a really interesting topic and you're going to do this all the way through till GCSE. But today we're just going to look at the basics, okay? I've put 3 different sequences here. One of them actually might stand out a little bit because it's not even got numbers in it, which is a bit scary, but actually it's quite a nice one, you'll like it. If you want to pause, that'd be great. See if you could tell me what the next 2 things in each sequence are going to be, okay? So what's going to go here and what's going to go here, okay? And to do that for each one. Okay. Right, assuming you've paused and done that, let's see if you were right. So here we're going to go up in 2s, okay? Each time we're adding on 2. Add 2, add 2, add 2. So our next is going to be 9, then it's going to be 11. Okay, so we're looking for patterns. That's basically what sequences are. It's a pattern. So here we've got A, B, C, D. So we've added on 3 letters. E, F, G, 3 more. H, I, J. So now we're going to go K, L, M. So it's going to be an M. N, O, N, O, P. Okay, so it might have looked a bit scary, but all we're doing is just a pattern, and we're just seeing actually we've gone along 3 letters each time in that case, and now the next 2 we should land on. This one here, we're back to numbers, but this time they're going down instead of up. And I know we don't really like numbers that go down. We're quite happy with numbers that go up. Don't panic, okay? What's happening here? I'm going to put a little loop. Let's find out what the pattern is. To get from 10 to 7, I'm going to subtract 3. Okay, let's make sure that works on all the others. So 7 to 4, yeah, it does work. We're taking away 3. 4 to get to 1, the same again. We're going to subtract 3. So for here, we're going to need to subtract 3 as well. You can see the pattern's going to carry on. But that's going to put us into a negative, okay? Don't panic, it's okay. Think back to when we had that analogy about the room. And you know when we've got a room and we've got, let me get a couple of different colours here. Where are we? I want a red one quite specifically, you'll see why. And we've got some hot air floating around like this, lots of hot air, and then lots of cold air as well. And that makes up the temperature of the room, doesn't it? If we've got more hot air, it's a hotter room. If we've got more cold air, it's a colder room. Okay, so we've got our room. Excuse me, that's my son's musical piano, which has just decided to play all by itself. That's a bit creepy. Hopefully it won't do it again. So yeah, we've got hot and cold air in this room, and this is our room at the minute. Our room's number 1, but we're going to take away, we're going to subtract some hot air. Okay, we're subtracting some hot air. What happens if we take away some hot air? The room's going to get colder, isn't it? So if we look on our number line, here's our 0, here's 1, just here. Okay, and we're actually going to go, I'm just going to write out some numbers, our number line. We're going to go 3 that way. It's going to get colder, so we're going to go down 1, 2, 3. So we're going to land on -2. That's going to be our next number. Okay, and same thing again here. This is just all about negative numbers. We have done this before, or directed numbers. I suppose we should be more official with that, directed numbers. So again, we're going to start at -2. And because we're subtracting hot air, we're subtracting a positive number, we're taking away hot air out of the room. The room's going to get colder. So we're going to go down. Let's see where we land. 1, 2, 3. We're going to get on -5. Okay, so that's the first few of those. I wanted to just show you a different variety of them. Oh, here's a nice one. I'm going to put this at the bottom. I want to see if you can tell me this one. Drop me an email if you think you get it. Email me if you think you know what comes next in that one. Bit of a different one. Bit of fun though. A bit of fun. Okay, so here we are, sequences. We're looking for patterns. That's all we're looking for with sequences is patterns. So we've got some keywords. I need you to copy these down. We're not going to get too worried about some of them just now, but a couple of them are really important for now, okay? But I want these all to be together in your book, you see. So the first word we're going to define is called a term. Okay, and it's not like a school term. It's not a school term. A term is one of these, okay? So where we had our sequence here, each number that we've got here separated by the commas, each entry in our sequence is called a term. Okay, so we've got the first term, the second term, the third term, the fourth term, the fifth term, the sixth term, and it's the same even if these are letters, they're still the same. The first term, the second term, the third term, and so on. Okay, so each of our entries is called a term. Okay, so I'm just going to write that on here. So term equals we'll call it number because we generally work with numbers in maths. For sequences at least, a number in our sequence. Okay, and if it helps to put an example like this and to put an arrow, like you know, this is a term, for example. Brilliant, do that, okay, because you've got to remember you might look back at this next year and you've forgotten it, because it happens, okay, so at least I'll explain to you what we're talking about. Okay, so term is a number in our sequence. Now, this is the one we're going to be looking at particularly today, term-to-term rule, okay? The term-to-term rule is the rule which tells us how to get from one term to the next. And in this case, we were adding 2, weren't we? Okay, here we were adding 3 letters. Okay, we were moving along 3 letters in the alphabet. And this time, our term-to-term rule was to subtract 3. How did we get from one term to the next? Okay, we subtracted 3. Okay, so I'm just going to write down, let's have a think how we can word this one. How to get from one term to the next. I'm going to probably just put there like an example. For example, add 3. Okay, just as an example. And the last one of these, we're not going to look at this today, but we will do in the next few lessons, okay? But we'll get it written in now. Position to term rule. Okay, so it looks quite similar, but for position to term rule, what we're looking at is, do you know how I told you a moment ago we've got first term, second term, third term, fourth term, fifth term, etc. Those numbers that I'm using, the first, second, third, there are positions, okay? So above these I could actually write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, our first term, second term, okay, but these are our positions now. So actually I could say in position 4, the term is 7. In position 6, the term is 11. But sometimes I'm not going to tell you what our term-to-term rule is. I'm just going to ask you which number is in position 214. Okay, and we have to find out how to get from this number to this one, and we need to find a rule that works for any number, anything at all, 2491 if we wanted to. I'm not going to make you do that, but we want to find a rule that works to get us from this position and tell us what term it will be. Okay, so we're just going to write that in here for now. Don't panic about that yet, it'll seem much easier once we've done this bit first. Okay, so how to get from the position of, let's say, of a term to the term itself. Okay, now I'm not going to give an example of that one just yet. You'll see why when we do study them. Okay, so get those written in, pause if you need them a couple of minutes, okay? Make sure they're written in, put a nice box around them, make them stand out. I don't mind if you want to use different colours and things, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so we're going to do a few practice questions now, okay? And there's a few words I want us to have a look at whilst we're doing them. So the ones I'm going to give you to do this week are quite similar to these. I've picked these ones out carefully. So either write these in your books as examples. That would be the best. If that doesn't happen, I know it might not happen, don't worry. Use them to work along with, okay? Use them whilst you're working through the worksheet I'm setting you, okay? Because you'll find some of the questions are quite similar. So the first one here I've done, generate the first 5 terms of this sequence. And I've said the rule is to add 2, and we're starting at 5. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is this word here, generate. That's quite a fancy word, isn't it? Generate means to create, okay? So create. almost. You might have an electricity generator. Okay, like bouncy castles always have a generator where it creates the electricity to keep the air inside the bouncy castle. Okay, so to generate the first 5 terms, I basically want you to tell me what are the first 5 terms going to be, and our term-to-term rule. I've not been very clear with that, have I? But that is a term-to-term rule is to add 2, and we're starting at 5, so our first term is 5. Okay, and I want to find the first 5 terms. So here's number 1, and we're adding 2 each time. So 5 add 2 is 7. 7 add 2 is 9. And I'm going to keep on going until I've got 5 numbers written out. 9 add 2 is 11, and 11 add 2 is 13. Voila! Okay, quite nice, huh? So 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. First 5 terms. That's all done. Okay, no need to overthink these. Now then, you will get a chance to practice quite a few of those. I'm just going to give you the highlights here, okay? So that's the first type of question I'm going to ask you to do. The next one here, fill in the gaps. This is an interesting one because if you'll see here, I've left 2 gaps right in the middle in really inconvenient places. Okay, and I'm not even going to tell you what the term-to-term rule is. So we have to have a bit of problem solving here to work it out. So we're going to have 7 add something is going to be this thing, this number here, and this number add something, because it's always going to be the same number in these. Okay, we're always going to get the same number. It's going to give us 15, but we need to know what this number is going to be, this question mark that I've put in. So the nice thing we could do here is to say, well, actually, how do we get from 7 to 15? Well, to get from 7 to 15, we add 8. Okay. We just need to split it in half now, don't we, to find these ones? Because if that's the whole jump, and each of these is half of a jump, we're just going to need to halve it. So we're going to be adding 4 here and adding 4 here. Let's check it works. 7 add 4 is 11. 11 add 4 is 15. 15 add 4 is 19. And 19 add 4 is 23. So it works. We've not kind of got a different number. It does land on 23. So we filled in the gaps, and the term-to-term rule, term-to-term rule is to add 4. Okay, and did you see what I did there? We found out this one here all the way over with the gap in between, and we halved it because there was that extra one. Okay, so you'll have a few more of those to practice. Right, what do we have here? Okay, so the second term in a sequence is 9. The term-to-term rule is add 3. What are the first 5 terms? Now, this is very similar to the first question, except I told you the first term, and this time I'm not doing that. I'm going to tell you the second term. So what I'd suggest with these is I'd leave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gaps for our first 5 terms. Okay, and I know the second term is 9. So I'm going to look here. Here's my first term. Here's the second. So we know that's going to be 9. Okay, and the term-to-term rule is to add 3. So, well, we can do these, can't we? 9 add 3, add 3, add 3. So 9 add 3 is 12. Add 3 again is 15. Add 3 again, 18. What about this one? Pause the video and just have a think what's going to go here. Because if we add 3, we're going to get 12, which doesn't look right, does it? I feel like it should be smaller. Okay, and we're going to remember to use inverses. Okay, so instead of adding 3, because all the way up here we've added 3, add 3, and here that's exactly what we do here, but we don't know the number. So we're going to use the inverse. We're going to subtract 3 instead to find out what this number would be. 9 subtract 3 is 6. Okay, and that makes sense then, because we've got 6 add 3 is 9, so it works. Okay, so that's that kind of question, and I think I've just got the one more actually. I don't think, no, that's just the last one here, yeah. So this is the last example I'm going to give you before I let you have a go at your own. The first 5 terms of a sequence are 6, 11, 16, 21, 26. I want to know, is 252 a term in this sequence? Well, we could extend this all the way. We could keep on going. Let's find out what our term-to-term rule is first, okay? So 6 add what is 11? Well, 6 add 5 is 11. 11 add 5 is 16. Add 5, add 5. So our term-to-term rule, term-to-term rule is to add 5. Okay, we could keep on going, but that's going to take us a really long time to get up to 252. It's probably not the best use of our time, is it? So let's see, what else can we see? What else is happening in our pattern here? What I can see actually is that the units column each time is 6, 1, 6, 1, 6. So that pattern is going to continue. Okay, for those of you who've noticed, you might have realised that actually if we're adding on 5 each time, we're also going to be working in multiples of 10 at some point of this. Okay, so this is adding 10 each time, every other one, which explains why our units column here is always going to be a 6 or a 1. So 252, well, that's not a 6 or a 1. Okay, so the way we'd write this is where most people, they can see it, but they don't know how to write this down. We'll say 252 is not a term in the sequence because you could either say it doesn't end in a 1 or a 6, that's okay, or we could be a bit more efficient and say because its units column is a 2 and the sequence only has 1s or 6s in the units. Okay, that's quite wordy. Okay, that is quite a wordy one. I got a bit carried away. Such a nice pen to write with. Okay, so have a look at the sheet I've given you. These 4 examples that I've just done with you will cover pretty much everything on there, but obviously you're going to be stretched a bit on those to try new things with what I've given you. But you've got all the information now. You just might have to apply some of it differently. Let me know if you have any problems, if you run into any difficulties with them. And please make sure that those first notes, especially those keywords, are in your books, okay? Thanks, folks.